Earlier, I had the opportunity to sit down with Sir Tony Blair. The former Prime Minister has been a vocal campaigner about the issues and dangers surrounding AI. We discussed whether the government has the will and the expertise to regulate and control the new technology, who is winning in the global race to be the dominant superpower in the sector, and could an AI PM do a better job in number 10? We also asked ChatGPT to come up with an opening question, and this was it. What are your views on the potential benefits and risks of artificial intelligence, and how do you think governments and societies should navigate this rapidly advancing technology?
It's a technology that is both simultaneously very good, but potentially very bad. And so the advantages are massive. It can transform the way we live and the way we work. It can do enormous things in healthcare, in education, in the way government configures itself. It's going to change the way businesses work. Should increase productivity dramatically. On the other hand, you can get disinformation, you can get deep fakes, and you can get people using it to, for example, create bioterror weapons. So it's a, how does government need to approach it? It needs to understand it, master it, and harness it. Access the opportunities, mitigate the risks.
Let's look at the risks to begin with. How would you describe the moment that we're in terms of the technological step change that we're seeing?
I think it is on a par with the 19th century Industrial Revolution. I think it already was, but generative AI has given it a further push forward. So the important thing to realize politically is that this is the issue. It's why I keep saying to today's generation of politicians, technology is not something you get to after you've discussed all the other interesting political things. It is, for example, the only way out of the dilemma for developed countries, which is they're taxing a lot, they're spending a lot, and the outcomes are quite poor. And you've got a demographic problem because you've got fewer numbers of young people going to support larger numbers of older people. How do you work your way out of that? Growth, productivity, and using technology to make government and public services and welfare and so on operate much more effectively.
And you say that when you get the chance to speak to politicians today, you reinforce that. Do you think there's been a naivety in some of the political classes to the power of this thing?
I think there is a level of ignorance which is not surprising, and part of the problem is you've got the change makers in one room and the policy makers in another. And one of the things my institute tries to do now is put the two together, because if they don't get into dialogue, then the risk for the technology people is that politicians just see all the dangers of AI and not the potential huge benefits of it. And the risk for the policymakers is you end up with a whole lot of bad regulation that keeps AI back, and certainly for a country like Britain, that would be a disaster.
And how do you regulate a technology like this? I know we've got this conference coming in the autumn. I know you have thoughts about what may well come out of that. Is there going to be an international body that sort of deals with this sort of thing?
Yeah, the thing is, I think people don't quite know at the moment how you're going to do it. There are different types of regulation that you might have. You might try and regulate certain activities, certain aspects of the technology. But one of the reasons why I think it is a good idea for the government to have this conference this autumn is to explore all the different possibilities in regulation and try and get the leading countries to come together. So at the very least, Europe and America should be trying to work together on this.
And that's the West, if we can term it that way, NATO-aligned countries, let's call them that. What about other countries, non-aligned countries and actors like China and Russia? How do you get them on side to do the ththings that we think should be done in terms of this?
China will come at this with a different set of priorities and perspectives, but it's also a leader in the AI field. Along with the US, like so much else, the 21st century is going to be shaped in part by the competition between the two, in part as to whether it's possible to cooperate. For example, on climate change, America and China are going to have to cooperate. There's no other way. In global health, likewise. Is it possible to do that in technology? I don't know. But if you end up in a kind of arms race on technology.
So what is Britain's space in this? As you say, the US are leading, China as well. Where is Britain's role within this?
When I talk to people who know a lot more about this than me, they focus a lot on the science space for Britain. and artificial intelligence and what it can do for scientific breakthrough and advance. And we're
talking about new drugs and that.
Yeah, we're potentially strong in life sciences. We're strong actually in climate. We're strong in AI itself because it's a general purpose technology. So, we need to keep our universities strong. We need to invest heavily in the infrastructure. We need to build our compute capacity. There are a whole set of things that we can do, and it's got to be driven from the top, from government.
We've talked about some of the huge risks, but there might be a very present risk because we've got elections coming, both here and in the United States and in other countries in the next few years. How is AI and generative AI going to affect those elections?
The risks on the political side are very significant because your ability to spread disinformation, to do deep fakes, there are amazing things that can be done with this technology and obviously used negatively. It's going to require a whole new, part of what government's going to have to do is to try and survey the situation and try and shut down, make sure that those abuses of this technology are properly eliminated.
But they're not ready, are they? I mean, from what you've been telling us.
Well, it's tough. They're going to have to catch up fast, but that's just the reality. And the biggest problem you've got is that there is a lag between the way government works and the way this technology develops.
Okay. My final question. ChatGPT is going to affect many jobs, maybe replace some jobs. Do you think generative AI could have done your job?
No. No, it couldn't have. But I tell you what it can do. It could make decision-making much more efficient, and it could replace some of the processes in government. And so already around the world, for example, you have people using AI to do planning. You've got a country in Europe now using it to do small claims rather than go through an expensive court process. So no, it won't. In the end, it's maybe best to look at it as an aid to the people making decisions. But in the end, you've got to keep the decision-making capability for the human, but it will be much better informed by the technology.